Good morning, YouTube. This is a follow-up to my video that I did several months ago, where I was attempting to do a fair and balanced review of the turret tracking of the primary arm's first focal plane scope, specifically the 4 to 14 by 44 primary arm's front focal plane scope, or first focal plane scope. And I got a lot of feedback, both positive and negative, and so I'm going to repeat the test today. I finally getting around to it. It's been several months. I'm going to repeat the test out at the range this morning, and I'm going to go ahead and videotape more of the details of what I'm doing so that you folks out there can have a better idea of exactly what I did. Understand that I love the primary arm scope. I've got 5 of them. And again, I want this thing to do well, but I'm going to try to be very objective about what the results are. So we're going to get what we get. Now, ironically, since that time, I have actually purchased 2 of these Athlon Argos first focal plane scopes. These are 6 to 24 by 50, and these, instead of mil-dot, I bought the MOA version, minute of angle. So what I'm going to do today, as soon as I get out to the range, but I wanted to take care of some of these formalities in my garage so that we have some of the basics down, I'm going to actually do a comparison turret tracking test between the 2 available low-priced entry-level first focal plane scopes. Again, I love these scopes. I like to use them whenever possible. They're great for practice. They're entry-level, so they're easy for people to afford. And so my goal today is to go out and to redo my testing on the primary arm scope, but then also for the first time test the Athlon Argos. Give you folks a real good idea of the quality of these. But now, to try to answer some of the questions that came up in the previous video, let's go ahead and take care of some of the basics here. So first and foremost, let's talk about the actual target that I'm going to be using. Again, this will be mounted and be properly leveled when I get out there. But first of all, I want to show you that you'll see orange and fluorescent green dots on here. This target was set up so I could do both minute of angle, those are the green, fluorescent green dots, and milliradians, which are the orange dots. Now, obviously the lower left and the lower right, they're orange, but they actually represent my 0 point. The lower left represents the 0, 0, 0 elevation, 0 windage, regardless of which scope I'm using. But in general, the orange targets will represent the mil dots, and the green targets will represent minutes of angle. And just to show you how I've got this done, because I did have a mistake that I did find later after the test was done previously, and I did admit to it right away. I put a disclaimer in the video notes to make sure you knew that my 10 mil line, with 10 mil elevation line, was off. I was off by a full inch. That was my problem, my mistake, and I've since obviously corrected that, and we'll use this one. So you can see my measuring tape. Start out at 0, 0 for both mil and minute of angle. Here is my 10 minute of angle. Let me turn it this way. There's my 10 minute of angle measurement, and it's about 10.5 inches, and that it's a little less than 10.5, but right around 10.5. That's the approximate 10 minute of angles at 100 yards. Then I come up to the 5 mil line, and the 5 mil line is basically 18 inches, which is correct at 100 yards. My 20 minute of angle line is basically right at 21 inches, which again is correct for a 100 yard minute of angle. Then I jump up to 30 minutes of angle, and that happens to be somewhere about 31.6 inches. And then there's my bad line from before, my mistaken line from the previous test. Here is the proper 5 mil, call that 10 mil. That's the 10 mil elevation line at 36 inches. So certainly from an elevation standpoint, my target is correct. So at 100 yards, we've got the correct target spots for both minute of angle and mil dot. Similarly, for windage, if we start with the far left line being our 0 line for windage, if we come across to 10 minutes of angle, you can see that once again we're around 10.5, roughly 10.5 inches. So basically we're very close to the proper point for 10 minutes of angle right windage. And then if you go to my far right line, which is representing 5 mils, again, you'll see that we're at 18 inches for 5 mil of windage at 100 yards. And again, that tracks all the way down here. So all of these windage marks are now correct. So the target is accurate. So there should be no question about the target. When I mount it, I'm going to use my bubble level. I'm going to level the horizontal lines. So and I've already made sure that the lines are at right angles to each other. I did that when I drew it. So effectively the target will be level, and so that'll take care of the target. The target this time should be perfectly accurate, but I'm giving you the actual numbers and letting you visually see it. So if there's any questions about the accuracy of the target, you can certainly post those, but I think we've got this correct. Next, I want to show you the rifle. Again, I'm doing all this stuff here in the garage to get all this stuff on the table right up front so we know what we're dealing with, because once I get to the range, I'm going to focus on the actual shooting and the actual performance. But what I'm using here is my Precision AR-10. This is a gun that I purchased, custom barrel, bull barrel from, and the whole rifle, the AR-10 platform. It's a .308 caliber, and basically it was built by Accuracy Systems Incorporated out in Colorado. It's an incredibly good gun. I've got an identical gun to it that's in 6.5 Creedmoor, but this is the one that I have my Athlon scope attached to. So in effect, what I want to show you is how this is set up. It is an AR-10, so it is a semi-automatic, but I do have a precision barrel. So today, obviously, we're going to focus on how tight my groups can be on my zeroing targets. That way, we'll basically make sure that whatever I do at the turret tracking test, won't be a factor of being the gun. We'll know what the gun grouping is like, and we'll be able to factor that into the actual measurements. But in the meantime, very important to understand that I'm a precision long-range shooter, and so every one of my guns is set up very, very precisely for accuracy. And so some of the things we look at, if you can see here, I spend a lot of time with my rifles, particularly my scopes, making sure everything is aligned. I've got a target in my house that's about 30 feet, about 10 yards away. And what I do is, the first thing I do is every one of my scopes has a bubble level. Here's a Vortex, or I'm sorry, this is actually an Athlon bubble level that I bought with the Athlon scope. And basically what I do is I first align the bubble level accurately to the reticle, okay? And so in this case, I take the reticle, line it up very, very carefully up at my target, which is inside, so it's a nice controlled environment. And then I adjust the bubble level so that the bubble level is dead on when the alignment of the reticle is perfectly horizontal, perfectly aligned with the target that I've got. It actually came with one of these laser sighting tools. So I do that, and then of course, very importantly, I have to level everything to the gun. Now, the best way to do that, obviously, is to level it to your best reference point, which tends to be the mounting base for the scope. But in any case, you can see that right here, my rail is perfectly level. My bubble level on the scope itself is perfectly level. And you can't really tell here, but I can promise you that the reticle in this condition is perfectly aligned with a perfectly leveled target. So in effect, what I've done with all of my guns, but just to show you here, this gun is set up very, very precisely for this Athlon scope, and I took the time yesterday to get the primary arm scope mounted on here and to do the same exact thing. So my scopes are properly aligned with the rifle, which again should minimize any drift. And now whenever I shoot, I have my left eye open, focused on this bubble level, and my right eye, of course, is focused on the target and the reticle. So I always make sure before I shoot that I've got a perfectly level scope, perfectly level rifle to the target. And of course, I mentioned I will level the targets before I mount them, or when I mount them out at the range. Lastly, we're going to talk about ammo. I have some precision reloads for this gun, but again, with all the ammo I'm going to go through today doing all of this testing, I'm going to go with factory ammo. So I've got two choices. I've got American Eagle .308 150 grain full metal jacket boat tail, and then I've got my Fiocchi 150 grain PSP, which is a soft point type bullet. I'm going to go ahead and do my zeroing for both of these rifles, or both of these scopes I should say, and you know, if the groupings with my American Eagle are good, if they're fairly precise, which this rifle is very good, if I feel comfortable with it, I'm going to use the American Eagle. If I don't, I'll go to my better quality Fiocchi PSP. But either way, I'm going to use factory ammo, so I'm going to give this thing a fair test that most people would deal with. I'm not going to go ahead and use my you know, high quality precision reloads, because that really isn't something that most people out there are going to do for a semi-automatic rifle. So bottom line is, I'm going to give you an accurate test. I'm going to attempt to give you a very accurate test, but I'm showing you the details of what I've done so that everybody can then critique this based on whether you see any flaws in my logic. My hope here is to do a very fair and balanced test. I love these low-end scopes, low-price scopes I should say. I want them to do well. I'm not trying to be critical of the scope. I want the scope to do well, but I'm going to be fair and objective and show you exactly what I get. Okay, now I'm out at the range. I'm out here in the middle of the desert. Conditions are calm. I'll give you a full reading on what the weather conditions are off my Kestrel in a little bit. But in any case, these are my targets. I'm going to use the targets on the right to do my zeroing for each scope to make sure we got a nice precision zero. Then I will actually pull the turrets and adjust them so that I will have correct zeros. The zero marking will represent the zero for windage and elevation. I'm going to make sure that those are precisely at zero, so I'm going to actually pull the targets, or pull the turrets I should say, after I zero, and make sure that everything is zeroed for the appropriate scope. Then of course I'll come over here and start running my test across this turret tracking target. I've already described that, and just to show you again, I've got this mounted and I've got my level, and basically you can see here, let me get this adjusted here, you can see that again the line's a little bit sloppy, but you can see that I am level, so my horizontal line is level, and I can go down to one of my other lines. Let's take like the 5 mil line here, and if I again get this thing lined up correctly, you can see that the bubble level is level. So again, my 5 mil line is correctly leveled here. So again, the target has been leveled. It's locked in with my these are actually door stops that I bought that I use to make sure these target stands are locked in. So this is where we're going to start. It's crack of dawn here out in the desert. It's a beautiful morning. Sun's about to come up. I'm 100 yards away. I'm going to go ahead and show that measurement. I've got a laser rangefinder that I'll show you, a Bushnell, and we'll show you the range to make sure that we have an accurate 100 yards to the target. Okay, 6 o'clock in the morning here in the desert, and I'm going to flip through some of my screens here. This is a Kestrel applied ballistics, not only calculator but also weather type meter, and hopefully you can see that. I'm trying to make sure there's no glare. Density altitude is currently registering at 3,956 feet with a temperature of 74.4 degrees. There's a very, very light wind. It's coming from right to left, very small at this point, very calm. I don't think that'll affect shots very much. Got 27.7% humidity with a barometer of 29.42 inches of mercury, and my actual elevation is showing up around 2,300 feet. This is my standard home range. This is where I do all of my shooting for the most part. So again, that's what we're looking at as far as conditions. And I've got one more screen here, which is just basically, again, wind and direction, so forth and so on. But let's stick with this screen here, 2,300 feet, 27.6% humidity. And then back up here, you know, about 75 degrees Fahrenheit at 6 o'clock in the morning with a density altitude of 3,980. So hopefully you can see that. That's what I've got for my ambient conditions at the start of my test. Next up, I've got my Bushnell Elite 1 mile arc, which is what I use as my laser rangefinder. And you can see my setup here. because my bench at the range is actually about 103 yards from the target, I'm going to take that error out today, and I'm going to actually go prone. I've got rear bags like I always do, and I've got my little front rest. So again, effectively I'm going to use my standard configuration with my front rest and my rear bags to make sure the rifle is nice and stable. Again, I do a lot of 1,000+ yard precision shooting, so it's not a factor. I know how to do that reasonably well. But in any case, this is my setup. I'm going to lay prone on this mat. I'm going to make sure that the barrel, I should say the muzzle of the rifle is exactly 100 yards from the targets downrange. So that's obviously my goal today, is to make sure that we have as accurate a distance as possible out to my targets, which I've shown you already. So that's what the setup's going to be. Give me a few seconds. I'm about to bore sight this rifle, because I had to swap scopes while I was playing around with getting everything aligned yesterday. So I'm going to start out with the Athlon scope, but I'm going to do a quick bore sighting of this now that I've got some daylight. I'm going to bore sight it and start my zero. I'm going to go ahead and show you the zero target and the turrets after that's done. Okay, the initial setup's complete. I've got the bore sight done on the scope and the rifle, so hopefully it'll be on paper. I'm exactly 100 yards now from the muzzle. And to say muzzle, I'm actually using, for whatever it's worth, I'm using the actual muzzle of the rifle, not the extension, due to the what do you call it here? Oh crap, drawing a blank. I apologize. But anyway, bottom line is I'm using the muzzle and not my muzzle brake, I should say. So I'm using the muzzle itself, not the edge of the muzzle brake. So I'm exactly 100 yards from the exit of the muzzle for the bullet. So just trying to keep you apprised of every single thing I'm doing to make sure there's no question about how the test was run. And again, I'll be using the bubble level on the scope to make sure that every shot is fired from a level position. And after I'm done zeroing, once I get a precision zero, I'm going to physically pull the turrets, rotate them to the 0 point, drop them back on, tighten them up. And so I'll be starting out with a perfect 0-0 elevation and windage turret. When I start making my adjustments, in this case, because it's MOA, again, I'll be doing 10 MOA, 20 MOA, 30 MOA, that kind of thing. And then I'll change later to the primary arm scope. This is the Athlon that we talked about. So I'll do that one first. Then I'll switch over to the primary arm scope and go through the same process. I'm not planning on wasting a lot of the video showing you my actual shots. I'm going to go ahead and show you 1 or 2 shots, then I'll go down and show you the target each time. But effectively, this is what we're looking at. So this is my range. This is where I'm going to be shooting from. You can see down the end there, that's my targets. That's how this whole thing is going to go down today, and hopefully we'll come up with some good results. And again, just a reminder, I love these scopes. I love the idea that we can buy a very low-priced, hopefully reasonably accurate first focal plane or front focal plane scope in both the Athlon and the primary arms. So again, this is not meant to be a critique. This is meant to be simply an educational video for my purposes and your purposes to see how good these scopes are. I'm trying to be as accurate as possible, but in no way is this meant to in any way chastise the primary arms or the Athlon. I want this to be a good scope. I want everybody to be able to enjoy an entry-level scope and not have to necessarily spend the kind of money like we do on Night Force and Swarovski and Loophole and stuff like that. And those are Vortex. I've got Vortex and Night Force myself, and those are very accurate scopes, very precise. But I think these are good entry-level scopes, and I just want to show that they're reasonable. But again, the data is going to be what the data is going to be. I'm going to be very objective here. That was my attempt in the first video as well. Unfortunately, some people pointed out some things that I had done that were either wrong or not thorough. So I'm trying to correct that here. Okay, I believe I've got a good zero. I'm going to go ahead and take 3 more shots at a clean target for my zero target. Make sure that the grouping is good, and then I'll take the video down there and let you look at the group. Now that I've got it zero, we'll make sure it's a clean zero, and then we will begin the turret test itself. I've got to adjust the turrets themselves, but I'll do that and I'll show you after I adjust the turrets where we're at. But effectively, I'm just going to take about 3 or 4 more shots. Make sure the shots are accurate on a fresh target so that we know our zero is good. Then we'll adjust the turrets so that they're actually aligned to zero, and then we'll begin the turret test. Okay, this is my first target. Basically, I started out after I bore sighted, got a shot there, did a quick move, overshot, got these ones off to the upper right. Then I retweaked the 0 and got this next group of 5 right there. So that's where I basically felt that I was pretty well zeroed. Then I went ahead and came down to this second target, clean target, and shot that group right there. So that's my initial group. I'm going to call that 0. Might be slightly high, might be slightly right. I could have done a little a few more shots there, but again, basically we've got a 0. You can see where it was pretty accurate 0 there. Those are the 3 shots after I went ahead and took a clean target. So this is where we're at. Now I'm going to come over and start shooting this. Now again, this is the Argos. The Athlon Argos scope. So I'm going to be using the green dots, which are, again, the lower left is orange, but that's the 0 for everything. But then I'm going to use the green dots where I'm going to go up to 20 MOA, 30 MOA, going to go right 10 MOA, then I'm going to go down 10 MOA, so I'll be 20 MOA up and 10 right. Then I'll go all the way down to the bottom where I'll be 0 on the elevation and 10 right on the windage. Then I'll swing back to 0, 0. So we're going to basically take a round robin here, up and down, back to the 0, and see how well the Athlon Argos scope tracks. And again, knowing that this is the accuracy of the gun with the factory ammo, that's what we're going to be dealing with. So we'll keep on comparing to that relative to how the shots are falling with respect to the tracking of the turrets. Okay, so here we go. Now, as I said, after I zeroed the rifle, you can see here, hopefully this is coming in, but you can see that my elevation is actually up 3 clicks or 3/4 of a minute of angle. And you can see that my windage is actually left by what looks to be, I think I'm seeing 1 click or 1/4 minute of angle. So effectively now I'm going to pull these turrets, I'm going to move them so the 0 is the 0. So again, I'm going to move this by 3 clicks and move this by 1 click so that, I mean, not clicks, but I'm going to move the turret itself. I'm going to pull the turret off, rotate it, and drop it back on again so that basically I've got 0, 0 as my starting point. Now each of these is a 12 minute of angle full rotation. So you'll see I'll show you where I rotate these two after each or before each attempt, so you'll know that I'm accurately moving where I need to be. Okay, now just to clarify, again, what I did is I used the wrench to basically adjust the turrets so that basically now 0 is 0. So what we've got now is a 0 elevation and a 0 windage. That should represent my perfectly zeroed or reasonably perfectly zeroed target shots. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start shooting 3-shot groups. If I feel that any of the shots is inaccurate, if 2 of the shots are close and one of them's a little bit off, I may go to a 4th and 5th shot. I want to be fair. I want to try to go with 3-shot groups, but I will go as high as 5 if I feel that there's some inaccuracy in what I'm seeing. So effectively, I'm trying to be fair about this and give it the best shot, but here we go with the Athlon Argos scope turret tracking test. Okay, so turrets are at 0, 0. And now we're going to go ahead and look at the 3 shots I took on the target. That's my 0 point. That'll give us an idea what kind of accuracy we're going to get. And then we'll go ahead and move the turrets and start going up to our next minute of angle elevation. Okay, now the 3-shot group on this target is there, there, and there. So again, not perfectly accurate. Again, we're using factory ammo, but you can see that the elevation is basically right at 0. Looks like the windage is slightly left. Again, we'll see if that tracks up, but what we're going to do now is we're going to go to the 20 MOA mark. And so we're going to do elevation to 20 MOA. We're going to keep the windage constant, and we'll see if we are tracking. So again, it looks like our elevation at 0 is pretty darn close. Again, if we look at this group here, it looks like we're pretty well level. So we're going to be doing an elevation tracking here up to 20 minutes of angle, then 30, then we'll shift over 10, come down 10, come down 20, and then go back to 0. We'll see how that looks. Okay, now again, we want to go up 20 minutes of angle. So we're going to turn the turret counterclockwise to go up. We're starting at 0. 1 full revolution is 12. So let's go 1 full revolution. That's 12 minutes of angle. I need 8 more to get to 20. So I'm going to turn the turret to 8. So I should now be aiming the shots up by 20 minutes of angle. Now I'm still going to aim for the lower left target. Everything I do today, I'm going to be aiming for the same lower left target. I'm using the turrets to move the bullet. So in theory, this is going to force me to aim lower, and it's going to be, or I'm sorry, aim higher, which will actually move the bullet higher, but I'm going to be aiming at the crosshairs to be at that lower left 0-0 target. So that's how this whole thing's going to work. And again, you can see I've moved it 1 full revolution plus 8. So that should give me a total of 20 minutes of angle. Again, we get up to 11, and then the next increment is back to the 0. So we've got 12 minutes of angle for 1 full rotation. So I've gone 12 plus 8. So my next 3 shots, aiming at the lower left target, should hit, theoretically, right on the 20-minute of angle up target. Okay, again, this is the Athlon Argos, and we're up at 20 minutes of angle based on the turrets, and you can see we've got a very, very nice group of 3 right at 20 minutes of angle. So the Athlon Argos elevation seems to be right on. Again, we had our initial 0-0 here, which for some reason I was a little bit left. I don't know if that was me. Again, the shots seemed to be consistent. I didn't really pull anything, but I had the first 3 shots there. I dialed the turret up 20 minutes of angle, and we're right on the money. Okay, so now we want to go to 30 minutes of angle. So I'm sitting here at 8 on the turret. If I go 4 minutes of angle up, I'm back at the 0. So I've gone 4. I need to go 6 more to get 10 full minutes of angle. So that'll take me to the 6. Seems like it's not quite hitting on the click. It's like I'm either a little over, a little under, but I'm going to go ahead and go right there. That seems to be, and again, it's a little sloppy. You can feel the clicks, but it seems like it wants to either be slightly off that way or slightly off that way. So I'm going to go ahead and stick it right there. But anyway, so there's theoretically 30 minutes of angle on the Athlon Argos scope, and we're going to go ahead and take those shots. Okay, now we're at Athlon Argos again, 30 minutes of angle, and it's a little low, but keep in mind the click intervals, it's kind of sloppy. So again, this could be off by a quarter minute of angle or a quarter of an inch, just because of the fact that it's not, the turret doesn't line up perfectly on the mark. It seems like it's sloppy one side or the other, so I could be off by 1 click. But it's a nice group, and you notice it's tracking slightly right. So the interesting thing here is the first group actually was predominantly left. This group was almost dead center, and this group is slightly right. So there may be some slight alignment issue with the the turret when it's tracking up is actually skewing a little bit to the side. Now, I took a lot of painstaking effort to make sure that the scope was level to the bubble level, and that the bubble level was level to the base of the scope, where the mounting base on the rifle. So again, and I am using the level every time I shoot. So you can see my groups are reasonably consistent. So it's not that I'm missing my level. It's just that there does seem to be a slight angular shift. So anyway, for 30 minutes of angle, the shots are pretty close. This could be a factor of the turret. Like I said, the turret's a little bit sloppy, and it doesn't line up precisely with my mark. It's like a a half of an increment either left or right. So it's hard for me to tell which side I should be on because I'm not directly on the target. And I have no choice there. These turrets, both this one and the primary arms, they have teeth. They have teeth that you set the turret down over the top of. So you can only go over the teeth. So I have it lined up as the only way I can. I can't tweak it any way further than that. But bottom line is the elevation appears to be good, and we might be seeing up to 1/4 of an inch of error here at 100 yards just because of the fact that I can't get a perfect alignment on that elevation turret. But nonetheless, the Argos, or the Athlon Argos, appears to be tracking pretty well. Now I'm going to go ahead and go 10 minutes of angle to the right and then hit this target. Okay, now back to basics here. Again, we want the windage this time to go right, which is going to be, again, counterclockwise. We're starting at 0. A full rotation is 11 minutes of, or 12 minutes of angle. We're going to go 10. So all I've got to do is dial this in this direction until we're on the 10. Now this one seems to be better than the elevation turret because it does appear like it's right on the 10. So the click interval is getting me right where I want to be on the 10. Whereas you can see here, I'm actually slightly off on the number 6, which was actually 30 minutes of angle when we twisted it. So effectively, it's just, there could be some 1/4 inch worth of error due to that. The elevation, though, lined up perfectly at 10 minutes of angle. So let's go ahead and do those shots. Again, so we're using the Athlon Argos. We've maintained our 30 minutes of angle of elevation, but now we've added in 10 minutes of angle right windage. And you can see it's a decent group, but all the shots are right of the correct, center point. So again, for whatever it's worth, these were right also. So, again, it looks like it may have tracked perfectly, 10 minutes of angle to the right, but my shots were already right when I went from 0 up to 30 minutes of angle. So again, whether that's a slight alignment in the scope or whatever, I don't know. But if you look at that group relative to 10 minutes of angle right, I'd say it's pretty good. So effectively, I would say that it's tracking on the windage pretty accurately. It's just a matter that right now I've got a skew to the right, which I can't explain. And you'll notice, again, the 30 minutes of angle is low. So it's not, again, it could be because of the turret, but that would give us about 1/4 of an inch. Not sure if that's going to make up the difference or not. But in effect, it's tracking pretty well. Again, not sure where the error is coming in. It could be in the sloppiness of the elevation turret, but it does look like it tracked left to right reasonably well. Now I'm going to drop it down 20 minutes of angle. Then we'll drop it down to 0, and that's, again, I'm talking about on elevation, but we'll keep our 10 minutes of angle right. Then I'll shift back to the 0 again, and we'll see how the thing returns to its original 0. Okay, so now we're going to basically drop back down 10 minutes of angle, and again, our elevation is currently showing a 6. So if I start dropping down, I'm going to drop down 6 to get back to the 0, but I've got to drop down 4 more to go 10 minutes of angle down. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you remember correctly, that's exactly where we were when we were moving up. So we're going to keep the windage at 10 right. We've now dropped the elevation down to 20 minutes of angle up, and we're going to take those shots. Okay, again, Athlon Argos, we lowered the elevation to 20 minutes of angle, and you can see the original target at 20 minutes of angle with 0 windage was pretty good. And you'll see that we have almost the identical thing here with 1 shot off to the right. Again, this is factory Fiocchi PSP ammo. Again, you're not going to get quite as accurate as you would with a perfect reload. But again, nonetheless, there's the group, and I would say that the 10 minute of angle drop was pretty consistent. And I would say that we're still holding that 10 minute right position. Again, you can see, again, we got the skew from being slightly outboard here to now being on target. We had the same skew here. We were off to the right at 0 windage, 30 minutes of angle, and we were right on the target at 20 minutes of angle with 0 windage. So theoretically, when I drop down to this target, which will be 10 minutes right, but 0 minutes elevation, I'm guessing we're going to be slightly off to the left. There seems to be some kind of a angular skew. It could be an alignment issue, but again, I've taken painstaking effort yesterday to make sure that my alignment is perfect to a level target. So, and I am using the level every shot. Now, to save time, because this is taking a long time to walk 100 yards back and forth every time I take shots, I'm going to go ahead and complete these shots and the 0 shot, so 6 more shots, and then I'll come back and show you the target after that. I will follow exactly the same process I've been following. I'm just going to save us some time on this video. Okay, now I lowered the elevation all the way down to 0, and you can see the 3 shots here. Now, I don't know why they seem to be high again. You know, we got that sloppiness in the turret that may be accounting for 1/4 of an inch, so that could be part of it. But I don't know why they got sloppy. Again, it was my normal, everything else was normal as far as my hold and all. But the interesting thing is then I slid back to 0 on the windage, and you can see the 3 shots again. They seem to be tracking somewhat high compared to the original shots, which were these 3. Now I ended up with these 3, 2 here. There's 2 shots there and 1 there. That's where I ended up when I returned. So I don't know why. I'm not really impressed with the return, but we could certainly allot 1/4 of an inch of that to the sloppiness in the elevation turret. But it doesn't appear to have tracked back down where I would have thought it would to the 0. But overall, though, you can see that the turret for the Athlon Argos front focal plane or first focal plane scope seems to track pretty well. And again, for a less than $300 first focal plane scope with all the bells and whistles, you know, you've got your that particular one even has an illuminated reticle. It also, of course, has the parallax adjustment. So you've got a full-featured scope, and I think overall it does a pretty good job. Now I'm going to clean up this target, and then, of course, I'm going to start working on installing the primary arm scope on it, get it zeroed. I'll show you that 0 once I'm done with it, and then we'll repeat the test, but in this case we'll be doing milliradians instead of minutes of angle. Okay, the swap has been made. We've got the primary arms 4-14 by 44 first focal plane or front focal plane scope on here now. You can see a couple of little things that I've added. I've got the primary arms lever, if you will, for the zoom. Makes it a little bit easier to move. It's actually pretty tough to move without it. So I've got that, and I've also got a vortex bubble level. So now I've done my bore sighting. I need to go ahead and actually zero it. So I'm going to zero this thing just like we did, and we're going to repeat the whole process again. But remember, this is a milliradian scope, not a minute of angle. So we're going to be shooting at the different targets. We're going to be shooting at the orange, fluorescent orange targets as we go up, over, and back down again. So let me go ahead and get this zeroed. I'm going to go ahead and move the turrets like I did. Once I have the 0, I'm going to adjust the turrets so that they're properly zeroed, and we'll go from there. Okay, now we're dealing with the primary arm scope. I did a bore sight and took my first shot, which was right here, did a quick adjustment, and then got several shots. I kept working my way up towards the bullseye. So this was basically my initial 0 group to get on paper and then basically get close. And then I went ahead and I took the Fiocchi PSP 150 grains, my better quality factory ammo, and that was my 3-shot group. So I think we're pretty good on our 0 for the primary arms, 4-14 by 44 front focal plane scope. And as I mentioned, I cleaned up this target, especially the 0, because that's being shared by both the minute of angle and milliradian targets. So I'm going to take my first shots here, then I'm going to jump up to 5 mil, then I'm going to jump up to 10 mil, then I'm going to jump over 5 mil, I'm going to come down to 5 mil but stay 5 mil right, then I'm going to drop down to 0 on the elevation but stay 5 mil right, and then I'll come back over here to the 0. So we'll do the same basic test we did, but this is now the primary arms front focal plane or first focal plane scope. And again, we'll try to compare these results to what I got the previous time, and by the way, this is a different primary arm scope. I actually took one of my other ones out of my stock. I have 5 of them all together. So this is going to be a slightly different unit, but same exact scope principle, same exact model. So effectively, I'm going to see if there's any correlation with what I saw the first time, which seemed to be that it did not track the mils accurately. It was actually going too far. It was a little too high in all cases. So, and I think the left to right, I can't remember. I think it was shifting one way or the other. But again, it was still not bad. Don't get me wrong. For a $229 scope on Amazon, that's pretty damn good. But let's see what we can do with everything being more precise. I'm taking a little more time this time to be accurate in my methods, be accurate in my distance, and all those kind of things. So I'm trying to give the primary arms a fair shot because I do like the scope. I'm very pleased with what we just saw on the Athlon Argos scope. We'll see what we can come up with on the primary arms 4-14 by 44 front focal plane scope. Okay, now as before, this is now a zeroed scope. So the scope is zero, but you can see that we're basically 8 clicks. Actually, again, that sloppiness on the elevation, it's like 7.5 clicks, but nonetheless, we're basically 7.5 to 8 clicks up on the elevation turret, and looks like we're about 8.5 to 9 clicks on the windage turret. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Allen key to basically remove the turrets, lift them off the posts, rotate them to the zeros, and drop them back down. Okay, so within the accuracy of the ability of the turret to sit on its post, which again has those teeth in it, so again, you can't adjust it infinitesimally small. You have to go one way or the other on when it drops down on the teeth. So you can see it's slightly below the zero on the elevation, and right about, but maybe slightly above the zero on the windage. So there's what you're getting when you pay for a cheaper scope. Obviously, it comes down to how well they can manufacture these turrets and how well they can engrave and emboss the writing and the increments and so forth. So, again, bottom line is we're dealing with a half a click potentially, which could be 1/8 of an inch. If you assume that you have plus or minus half a click, you could be dealing with this is mil. So you could be dealing with a half a mil of inaccuracy built right into the ability to have the turrets be properly aligned when they're actually mounted on the turret post. But in any case, that's where we are. I've zeroed the windage and elevation as best we can, and now we're going to begin our test. Okay, so here we are. We've done the first 3 shots at the 0-0, so 0 elevation, 0 windage on the primary arms first focal plane scope. And you can see the shots here, 1, 2, 3. So we're a little bit low. But again, we'll keep that in mind. I'm going to go ahead and go up 5 mils, then up 10 mils. Then I'm going to go right 5 mils. I'm going to come back down 5 mils, back down another 5 mils. So again, we're going to be tracking these orange targets. Up, up, over, down, down, and over. I'm not going to bore you with all this stuff, but remember, this is milliradians, not MOA. And so we're going to be going for the orange targets, and then we're going to take a look when we're all done at to how well this thing tracked. I'll show you my turret moves, but I'm not going to keep coming down here every single shot. We'll go ahead and just look at everything in a composite at the end. Okay, so now we want to go 5 mils up, and you can see by the way the turret is designed, there's 6 mils per revolution. So ultimately for the first round, all I have to do is dial this to 5, and I've theoretically gone up 5 mils. Now next time around, I'll have to remember that there's 1 just to get back to 0, so I'll have to go to the 4 to be a total of 10 mils up. But in any case, we've gone 5 mils up. We're leaving the windage at 0, and here we go. Okay, just a quick update. I've gone all the way up to 10 mils, and then I went over 5 mils. And now I'm working my way back down again. I've gone back down 5 mils. Now I'm back down to 0. So my elevation is back to 0. My windage is still at 5 mils. And then I'm going to do these 3 shots. And then I got 3 shots to go. That'll be at 0, 0. And then we'll go down and we'll take a good look at the target and try to see, how well did we track up, over, down, and back. All right, now through my scope, I saw something very interesting, a little bit disturbing, so I'll explain it as we get down here. But in effect, I saw some strange tracking when I went 5 mils right and 5 mils back down. When I went 5 mils right, I was up 10 over 5, seemed to be pretty good. Then I just simply lowered my elevation back down to 5 mils up, and I saw something very disturbing. So I actually when I got all the way down back to 0, 0, after that was completed, I went back up to 5 and 5, 5 up, 5 right, and took 3 more shots. So this is going to be very interesting to see and hard to explain, but let's start from the beginning. Again, we took our original 3 shots at 0, 0, and those are them right there, okay? Then we moved up 5 mils, and look, I mean, dead on the elevation. Very, very good. Come up to 10 mils, and just like I saw previously, you know, again, these were low, okay? So if you look at the delta from here to here, there's actually bigger than 5 mil spread. Then we go from being almost dead on at 5 mils to quite a bit high at 10 mils. So we're seeing the same thing. There's a proportionality problem with these shots. Now, what I'll do is real quick, I got my tape measure here because I saw this from a distance. Let me try to put my tape measure up here. If I measure from these shots, again, I'm going to basically zero those shots there. Those are the 10 mil up shots. And I come down to the 5 mil shots, and I'm getting 19.5 inches. Now keep in mind, it should be basically 18 inches. So there's an 1.5 inch difference with the primary arm scope when I go up 5 mils. Now to compare, we'll go this way, and I'll do the same thing here. If I take the original group, center was about there, and I come up to the 5 mil, I'm at 19.5 inches again. So it's very consistent, but it's proportionally wrong. So where I should be getting 18 inches at 100 yards, I'm getting 19.5. Now that's, you know, again, it's not bad, but it's the same thing I saw when I did a different version of the same scope last time. But here's where things get really even worse, or let's say very interesting. If I go 5 mils right, okay, so I start, you know, with the center of that group there and come 5 mils right, exactly 18 inches, which is good. So my windage, at least initially, looked pretty good. Now here, all I did, I kept the 5 mil windage, but I dropped 5 mils. So I dropped back down 5 mils in elevation, and this is where my shots were actually off the target. So I took a total of 6 shots. There's 6 shots in here, all of them right of the target, which doesn't make any sense. Again, something is going on with this turret where when I came down 5 mils, it actually skewed the windage. It doesn't make any sense. I went back and checked the scope, make sure the scope didn't loosen up. I made sure my windage had not changed. It was still at 5 mils, so that didn't make sense. I dropped it down again, 0. So I went to 0, and you can see that 2 of the holes are on the target. One of them actually missed the target stand completely. One hole is here, one hole's here, one hole went off. So again, for some reason, I got a big shift to the right. So then I went ahead and I took the turret back to 0, 0, and you can see the 3 shots I got there. And again, there's definitely a shift from where the original 0 was. Again, a shift to the right. I can't explain that, and I verified the scope has not moved. There's been no adjustments changed. So again, something strange happened when I came across 5 mils. It was almost perfectly 8 inches or 18 inches. But then when I dropped down, there was a big skew to the right. And I dropped down and that skew held. And then when I came back to 0, 0, same thing. There's a skew to the right that I can't explain. So it never got back to 0. And so there's clearly a proportionality problem. And again, I've shown you this back this morning when I was in the garage, nice conditions, but I'll show it to you one more time. When I measure my actual targets from center line to center line, my 5 mils is just over 18 inches, which is what it should be for 5 mils. And I'm basically at 36 inches for the 10 mils. And then if I go left to right, Whoops, hold on, I gotta shrink up my tape measure here. It's flopping over. So once again, if I check 5 mils across, I get 18 inches, which is what it should be. I come down to this target, and again, I put the 0 there. Whoops, let me get that on. Put the 0 there, and I'm getting basically 18 inches on this target. And then I come down to my lower one, I put the 0 on the center, and I'm getting, you know, basically 18 inches. Again, it's hard to hold it, but with just my 2 hands. But anyway, a little over 18 inches here. So there's nothing wrong with the target. The target is clearly correct now. We talked about the erroneous line here that I had last time I did this testing, but I have the correct mil settings here. So again, Again, the primary arm scope, there's a second time different scope where I've had tracking problems. Now again, is this significant for a $229 scope? It's probably not that big a deal, but just be aware, I'm trying to be objective here. This is what I'm getting. So I would say the Athlon Argos did very well. I mean, overall tracked very well and got back to 0 very well. Something is going on again, same as last time, where the elevation on the primary arm scope is not tracking. I'm getting 19.5 inches center to center of my groups consistently at 5 mils, 5 mils at 100 yards. I should be getting 18 inches. So again, there's definitely an issue with the performance of the primary arm scope. Now again, I don't know if that's a big deal to most of us, but the point is that again, this is what I saw last time. I got a lot of grief about the way I did the testing. This time I've showed you exactly how the testing was done from start to finish. I've made very careful adjustments, very careful leveling, and I cannot explain this. This is certainly not shooter error. You've seen my shots throughout the day, so you know that my groups are pretty darn good for factory ammo out of a good precision AR-10 gun. So in effect, whatever's happening here is related to the scope. It's not related to the shooter. It's not related to the gun. And again, if I was to go ahead and pop the other scope back on, I could go back and retest it to make sure that nothing's happened with the gun. But, again, I can't explain this. I'm not going to judge whether this is good or bad. It's just not going to be the accuracy that you expect out of a $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 scope. But you're also paying $229. So that's it. I'll close this out when I get back to the house and have a chance to think about this. But I wanted to show you the testing is complete. We've done the Athlon Argos 5 to 26 by 50 first focal plane scope, and we've done the primary arms 4 to 14 by 44 first focal plane scope. Okay, I decided before I go home just to cure my concern or curiosity as to whether or not there's something uniquely wrong with the gun suddenly. What I've done is I've put the Athlon scope back on. I'm going to go ahead and double check my 0 real quick, but then I'm going to go ahead and do just a couple of quick tests on the Athlon again, the Athlon Argos. I'm going to go ahead and just grab a couple of random points. I think I've got some 10-minute of angle dots that we did not play with earlier, so I'm going to go up 10, over 10, and just see if I'm tracking correctly. So once I get my 0 down, I'm going to go ahead and go up 10, over 10 with the Athlon scope, just to go ahead and see if the gun is fine. Again, we already know the Athlon scope is good, but this will give us a chance to check a couple of data points we didn't check, which was 10 minutes of angle up and 10 minutes of angle over. Okay, I popped the Athlon Argos scope back on. I did a real quick check of the 0. I didn't bother readjusting the 0, so there might be a slight, highness, a little bit high on the shots, if you will. I got one that was a flyer. That was me. I was just trying to rush and make sure that the remounted scope was close to 0. So it's reasonably close to 0. It might be a little bit high. And then I basically came over and I did 10 minutes of angle up and got this group. And then I did 10 minutes of angle right and got this group. So again, I was rushing this. I wanted to get this done just to make sure. But bottom line is that within reason, knowing that my 0 was a little bit high, because don't forget I remounted the scope, but I did not try to precision re-zero it. So these are pretty close to 10 minutes of angle up. These, again, depending on where the center is, of this group here are pretty close to 10 minutes of angle over. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with the gun, nothing that would explain being this far off on the primary arm scope. Again, after having a good result by going 5 mils over, trying to track back down again, I can't explain this. It's not the rifle. It appears to be the scope. Again, it's just something that we have to live with. Again, I've had 2 now primary arm scopes that I've tested, and at least with the elevation, they are proportionally off. They're not tracking, you know, mils like they should. You know, again, I'm getting where I should be getting, say, 18 1/8 of an inch for 5 mils at 100 yards. It's actually getting 19 1/2. You know, so again, that's what we found, is that with the primary arm scope, the elevation, again, don't forget, I'm looking at the delta from where my shots were to where they ended up. It looks good here, but they actually started out low. So if you measure this from here to here, we get 19 1/2 inches. If we measure from here to here another 5 mils, we actually get 19 1/2 inches again. So there is a proportionality issue with the primary arm scope that we didn't really have, you know, again, at least not to that level, with the Athlon Argos. So again, none of these scopes are going to be perfect. Obviously, you got to factor in some possible shooter accuracies, some possible accuracies of the rifle itself, the ammo itself. I've tried to be very upfront and very objective today and basically show you exactly what I did and how I did it. In general terms, again, the scopes are probably not bad for a low-end first focal plane scope, something to put on a, let's say, a lower priced, lower end rifle, something to play with, something to learn on. But again, if you're looking for these things to be high precision LRP type guns, long range precision type guns, this is probably not your best bet. But if I had to choose between the two, based on this one test and having tested the primary arms twice, I would say that the Athlon Argos is a very commendable result, given, again, the price point. Well, I'm home for the range now, and just giving some final thoughts to what happened today. Again, as far as I can tell, technically, I've done everything correctly. I've adjusted the scopes the way they're supposed to be adjusted. I've done the shots the way they're supposed to be done, and you know, given a little bit of reasonable shooter error and a little bit of reasonable ammo error. I believe the summary is that what we see is what we get. Again, I like both of these scopes. Obviously, I'm impressed with the way the Athlon Argos performed. It seemed to perform very well for a low-priced scope. Again, the primary arms, again, it's not as accurate as I'd like it to be based on this testing. And remember, this correlates very well with the test I did on another version of the same scope. Again, I've got 5 of these things. And I purposely pulled a different one just to make sure there was nothing unique about that. So again, I have nothing wrong with the primary arm scope. The data says what it says. Again, this is not a pro or negative against either of these scopes. I'm just basically trying to show some objective data in hopes that this might help you with any buying decision you might have. Again, I hope this is helpful, and hopefully the information is something that you can use.